All right, today we're starting with verbs, and since we are starting a new part of speech, we've covered nouns and pronouns. Now we're starting with a new heading in our notes. So this is Roman numeral 3 with verbs. Now this definition is taken from your text, taken from your book. We are on page 308 if you want to take a look at your book. But on 308, it tells us that a verb is a word or group of words that expresses time while showing an action, a condition, or a fact that something exists. So basically, it's either showing us that it's doing something or that it is something, that it's there, that it exists, it's alive. And it expresses time, and you say, how is that possible? Well, think about the different verb tenses. You have past, present, or future tense. Remember that? And so that helps us know when is it happening in time. So that's what that means. And today we're really going to focus in on the action and the linking verbs. And your goal today is to be able to tell the difference between an action verb and a linking verb and to be able to explain it. So yeah, so in your notes you need to have a number 1. There are 2 types of verbs. There's action and linking. And we're going to look at action verbs first. So an action verb tells what action someone or something is performing. And I have 4 examples here. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for the action verb. I'm actually going to fix this so we have a little bit more room to work. There we go. Okay. Okay, so it says Mia learned about winter sports. What we really need to focus on is we've got to find what's the subject, what's the sentence about, right? What's the simple subject? And then what is that subject doing? So I'm going to use my highlighter. All right, so first we're going to find the subject. Mia learned about winter sports. Who is that about, or what is that sentence about? It's about Mia. So I'm going to highlight in yellow the subject. And then what is she doing? What's the verb? Learned. That's what she's doing. Okay, in the next sentence, the radio blared the broadcast of the hockey game. What's my subject? What are we talking about? We're talking about radio. So radio is my subject. What is the radio doing? What's the action? The radio blared. Now the rest of the sentence, the broadcast of the hockey game, it's just descriptive stuff. We don't have to worry about that. We're going to talk about that when we come back from break in January. So the next one, we chose 2 books about Texas. So what's the sentence about? Who's doing the action? We. That's the subject. Now what are we doing? What's the subject doing? Chose. That's the verb. And the last one, they remember the film about China. What's the subject? They is the subject. And what's the action that they're taking? Remember. So remember is the verb. And just like with nouns, we have abstract nouns where we know that they exist, but you can't use one of your 5 senses to show that it's there. We have that same thing with verbs, and so that's why I have this number 1 down here. It's a note about action verbs, and it says the action expressed by a verb does not have to be visible, because like in these last 2 examples, you can remember something and no one else has to know that you're doing it, so it's not visible. We can choose something, or this one's in past tense, they chose. You can choose something and no one has to know. Are there ways to show people that you're making a choice? Of course. But it does not have to be something visible. So that's something that even if it's an action, it does not have to be visible, okay? So I'm going to clear those. All right, now we're going to go on to linking verbs. It says a linking verb connects its subject with a noun, pronoun, or adjective that identifies or describes the subject. Okay, so linking verb is connecting, linking and connecting. You need to know those 2 words and make them make sense in your head. And then you need to know that the most common linking verb is the form be. Remember how in the definition we have to show the fact that something exists? Well, being A verb form of be is how we show that something exists. And yes, I do want you to have this chart in your notes because it'll be helpful to you if you're doing work outside of class and you need a reference and you don't have your book. So yes, please put this chart in your notes. I know it's rather lengthy, but you need to know this. These are all the forms of be. Now remember, people are saying, well, why are there so many forms? It's because there's past, there's present, and there's future tense. Was and were are past tense. Am, are, is, that's present tense. Anything that says shall be or will be, that's future tense. So there are lots of forms. There are lots of, because of all the different the verb tenses, past, present, and future. That's why there's so many. But you need to be able to identify them all. So that's why I say go ahead and put them in your notes. Okay, so now I have some examples down here, and I'm going to show you how to find them. Let's see. Get my highlighter. All right. So the man is a famous hockey player. What's my subject? What are we talking about? We're talking about man. Just man. Simple subject. Now, we don't have an action verb this time, but we do have a linking verb. And according to our chart, my linking verb is the word is. Okay, so now the other question that we have to answer is, okay, so what is it linking the subject to? There's going to be something in the predicate that it is linking to. So let's take a look. Man is a famous hockey player. Oh, I see at the end of the sentence, player and man are talking about the same person. Famous and hockey are describing the player. Those are adjectives. We're not focused on that right now. Player is the word that I need to focus on because man and player are one and the same. Is links those together. The man is a player. And famous and hockey are describing that. So we know he's not a famous football player, he's not a famous basketball player or baseball player. We know he's a famous hockey player. And we also know from famous, we know people recognize him. He could just be a hockey player. But those two words are describing the player. Okay, so now the next one. The ice surface seems smooth. All right, so what's my subject? Ice is describing surface. Surface is my simple subject. My verb is seems. Seems what? Seems smooth. So smooth this time is not a noun. Smooth is an adjective describing the surface. And so that's okay because it's part of what the linking verb definition is up here. It describes the subject. So smooth is describing the surface. So seems is my linking verb. Okay, there are a few other linking verbs, and this needs to go in your chart as well. And now here are some examples. Same thing, you have to find your subject, then find your verb, and then to double check, is there a noun at the end of the sentence in the predicate, or are there adjectives describing the subject that can be found in the predicate? So the winter air smelled crisp and clean. So air is my subject. From my chart, I see smell, and we're using past tense, so we're using smelled. And then I see crisp and clean. Crisp and clean are describing the air. So this is going to definitely be a linking verb. The crowd sounds excited. Sounds, looking at my chart, sounds is a linking verb. Excited. Excited is describing the crowd. So sounds is connecting excited to crowd. so it's a linking verb. The driver stayed alert. Alert is describing the driver. Is stayed on my list? Yes, it is. It's right here. So alert is describing the driver, so stayed is linking the driver to the adjective. The situation on board remains serious. Situation is my subject. Remained is on my list. Serious is describing the situation. So remained is connecting situation to serious. The astronauts grew anxious. Astronauts is what we're talking about, is what the sentence is talking about. Grew is on my list, so I know that's my verb. Anxious is describing how they began to feel. Is that connecting to the astronauts? Yes, it is. So grew is being used as a linking verb. Okay, now these final notes, these are important pieces of information. So read here at the top. Some words can act as action or linking verbs. And now here's an important rule so that you know how they're being used in the sentence. It says to determine whether the word is functioning as an action verb or a linking verb, insert either am, are, or is in place of that verb. Then, if the substitute makes sense, then the original verb is going to be a linking verb. So I have some examples here. Okay, so first one, the air felt cold. My subject is air. Whoops. My subject is air. My verb is felt. Now, I'm not sure if this is going to be an action or a linking verb. So, I'm going to use one of the substitutes. The air is cold. Does that sentence still make sense? Yes, it does. So that tells me that this time felt is being used as a linking verb. So I'm going to label it LV. Okay? Now, the next one. The skiers felt a chilly wind. My subject is skiers. And again, we see the verb felt. The skiers felt a chilly wind. Now, can I say the skiers are a chilly wind? No, that doesn't make sense anymore. So I know that this time, felt is being used as an action verb. Okay? So, next one. The pears taste sweet. So my subject is pears. My verb is taste. And now let's do the test. Can I say the pears are sweet? And it still makes sense. Yes, I can. So then I know that this is being used as a linking verb. Okay, so final example. I taste the red pepper. Our subject is I, that's what the sentence is about. And again, our verb is taste. Now, can I say I am the red pepper? Only if you're a superhero named Red Pepper. So this sentence doesn't make sense in that context. So I know this time taste is an action. So I'm going to label it an action verb. So that's how you can tell the difference between an action or a linking verb. An action verb does just that. It expresses action. A linking verb connects the subject to either an adjective in the predicate or a noun that's renaming it in the predicate. So that's the difference between an action and a linking verb.